and check in with Daniel Gallen. Give Daniel a follow on X at DanielJT covers Penn State for 24/7 Sports. Daniel, great to have you back on the show, man. We've had this one circled on the calendar, Penn State and Oregon. And let's just start with the fact this is going to be a whiteout game, right? And I think any sports fan, any college football fan, certainly bucket list to go to a whiteout game at Penn State. And it's a big talking point because, as you know, in the past, this game would normally be that Fox Big Noon kickoff game. Instead, it's going to be a primetime game. So just tell us, for somebody who's experienced it, what the whiteout game is like. Does it live up to the hype? And do you definitely think the fact that this is a night game is a big X factor in the game?
The whiteout is really a one-of-a-kind event. Like when I started covering Penn State in 2021, that first year they played Auburn. It was the post-COVID, so you got fans back in the stadium for the whiteout for the first time, and the environment lived up to the hype. And I think that what you're going to see on Saturday night is an elevated version of that. Penn State hasn't had a marquee Big Ten opponent matchup in the whiteout since 2019. You look at the past couple of years, it's been Auburn, Minnesota, Iowa, Washington. No Ohio State in there, no Michigan in there. You finally get that marquee opponent on Saturday night. And so I think that this is going to be one of the spectacles of this college football season, and that environment at Beaver Stadium is most definitely going to be raucous.
Penn State, as we know, Daniel, up to this point, they really haven't played anybody. They've been like 40-point favorites in all of their games so far. So we really don't know a lot about this team. We definitely will learn a lot on Saturday. But just watching the games, what would you say is your biggest question mark for Penn State heading into this matchup?
I think you want to see quarterback Drew Aller really let it rip out there. He completed, I think, around 80% of his passes in the opener against Nevada. He's been under 60% the past 2 weeks. After the FIU game, he talks about overthinking a little bit. He missed a couple passes that could be considered easy, could be considered simple. It just wasn't really crisp. And we know the type of talent that he has. We know what he's capable of. Along those lines, too, running back Nick Singleton had a choppy game against FIU. It seemed like they were trying to get him right against Villanova, give him a lot of touches, get him into a rhythm. We know that he's a home run threat anytime he touches the ball. And so I think you're going to be looking at those two guys. In this type of game, you need those, 5 stars to make 5-star plays, to make difference-making plays. And Aller and Singleton are two of those guys that you can look to do that. So you're going to want to see those guys on track.
What do you think are some of the keys to this game on Saturday for both teams? What do you think are going to be the determining factors who ends up winning the game?
A really big topic that has come up this week is starting fast. Oregon is known for that. They can jump out on you, put you in a hole, and the way that Dan Lanning coaches that team, runs that team, like they're not going to take their foot off your neck. They are going to try to beat you, make it decisive. We saw it happen to Penn State in the Big Ten championship game last year, where they got into a big hole against Oregon early, almost came all the way back. They made it interesting there at the end, but it was just a little bit too much to overcome. So I think that at the end of the first quarter, if any team has really been able to find some separation, whoever has set the tone, I think that you can give them the edge moving on. So I think that's where it starts. Who comes out quick, who's ready. Does Oregon have any hiccups in this whiteout environment that Penn State can take advantage of? I think those are a couple of things you're going to be looking at pretty early.
I mean, since you've been covering the team, Daniel, can you remember a game where Penn State, it feels like, has had this much pressure on them to win? Because, as you know, in a lot of these big matchups, they've come up short, but they're usually the underdog in the game. Usually the roster's not as talented. Bunch of people in the offseason, myself included, picked this team to win the title. It feels like this is the year. So, I mean, all the pressure is on them on Saturday, right, to take care of business?
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at this, and this is a really big spot for Penn State. I was talking about on the Lions 24/7 podcast earlier this week that there's going to be a lot of people tuning in to see, not just is this 2025 Nittany Lions team legit national title contenders, they're going to be tuning in to see, like, what's the whole James Franklin project look like? Going back, more than a decade, we know that everyone who runs a big social media account has the graphics loaded already with his record against, top 10 AP ranked teams, what that looks like. But I think too, is that you can't get caught too much in the recency bias. Like just last November, Penn State was playing in a number 3 versus number 4 game against Ohio State. You brought in Andy Kotelnicki. That was supposed to be when Penn State was supposed to beat Ohio State. So we're just not that far removed from that game and everything that came along with that. So I think this is the biggest game right now. But I think that maybe at the end of the season there might be a bigger game that has come for Penn State. So I think this is huge. I'm excited. This is, I think, a really significant moment for this team. But it's you can't quite be a prisoner of the moment right now.
We're talking Penn State, Oregon with Daniel Gallen, covers Penn State for 24/7 Sports. Daniel, you mentioned the Big Ten title game between these two teams last year. It was a shootout, ton of points. Maybe not that type of game on Saturday, but do you think it's another high-scoring game, or do you think this is a lower-scoring type game, maybe like 24-21, somewhere in that neighborhood? The over-under's 51.5. So if you had a feeling, would you go over or maybe under that number?
I think you would go over. I think that both of these defenses are really solid, but I think that there's going to be a lot of offensive talent on both sides of the ball. Maybe both teams don't get into the 30s, but I think at least one team, will get to at least 31 points. I think that this will be a type of game where, it'll be back and forth, and maybe it doesn't feel like it's a high-scoring game. Maybe it doesn't feel like a shootout. But you can get to the fourth quarter and see, there's been a lot of points in this game. It's been really entertaining.
Another talking point for Penn State this offseason was the skill positions, the wide receiver, and then losing Tyler Warren. We know in that game against Notre Dame last year, they didn't have a receiver catch a pass. Again, haven't really played anybody the first 3 games, but so far, Daniel, do you think the coaching staff is pleased what they have seen out of the wide receiver room, and do you think they're going to be a big factor in the game on Saturday?
Definitely. I think there's been a lot of positives when you look at the additions of Kyron Hudson, Trevor Pena, Devontae Ross. They've all gotten to show different elements of their skill sets through the early part of the season. They've all been featured at different points by Penn State. So you've gotten a real idea of what they're about. And I think that you feel good about what they can bring with their skill sets. I think when you talk about replacing Tyler Warren, obviously you can't replace all of that production at once. That's just not the way it works. But I would circle the name Luke Reynolds right now. He's gotten a lot of attention from Drew Aller. I believe he's the second leading receiver at this point in the season. He can make guys miss. He's really athletic at over 250 pounds. I think he's the type of guy that could he's another one of those 5 stars. He was 24/7 Sports #1 tight end a couple years ago. He can make those difference-making plays for the Nittany Lions.
Daniel, before we let you go, my friend, we need a prediction for Saturday. Who do you like to win, Penn State and Oregon?
I picked Penn State to win this game before the season, and I feel like I have to stick with that. I haven't seen anything in either direction from Penn State or Oregon to really make me want to shift that. But I do have it being a really close game. Right now, I have Penn State 31, Oregon 28. I think it'll come down to the fourth quarter, and you're going to see some of those difference-making plays from guys like Drew Aller, Nick Singleton, Luke Reynolds, Katron Allen. The list goes on.
There you go, Daniel. Penn State to win, Oregon to cover. Could be one of those games on Saturday in Happy Valley. Going to be a good one. Daniel Gallen joining us. Give him a follow on X at DanielJT Gallen. Covers Penn State for 24/7 Sports. Daniel, have a great time at the Whiteout on Saturday, sir. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks for having me again, PJ.